Hello, everybody, and welcome back to NCAA 2005 in the Idaho Vandals Dynasty mode, and we are finally at the conclusion of year number 5 officially. Last year was kind of the last game conclusion, but this is officially the end of it as we are here looking at the results of the BCS National Title game, which obviously went to Florida over Boston College. But now looking over some stats here, Matt Norwood ends up having a pretty decent year, really protected the football, only 9 interceptions, which got him Conference All-American honors, but only 2,000 yards, of course, because he was injured for the last couple games of the year. Really just the North Texas game, I think, was the only one that he actually missed, but either way, didn't run as well as I thought he did. Ross Chester has a decent also time as a starter too, almost throws for 1,000 yards, 11 touchdowns to 1 pick. He might have a bright future as a starter here of the Vandals, but David Worthington has some work to do, man. He's got some distance to travel before he's ready to start. But Keith Bridges has an amazing year, over 1,000 yards rushing, only 4 touchdowns though, interesting, and only averaged half a yard more than he did last year, so kind of interesting. So the 1,000 yards is nice, but he doesn't really do a whole lot more in terms of production here. Nicholas Bullard just 2 yards shy of that 1,000-yard mark. If he hadn't gotten injured in the New Orleans Bowl, he probably would have hit it, and the 17 touchdowns is probably what lifted him to that best receiver award, probably why he didn't get Heisman votes or any real Heisman recognition. But Patrick Wilkerson has a decent year for us in his senior season, one of the first prospects we ever brought here to Moscow. He has a good year, but again, low touchdowns, only 3. So it looks like Nicholas Bullard was the touchdown machine, and everyone else was just kind of complimentary to how that worked. Conrad McNeil has a season similar to his freshman year. We were looking for more of that sophomore year production, but he's closer to his freshman year's production. So, and Keith Bridges has a decent year receiving as well, almost 500 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns. So if you talk about all-purpose yardage, over 1,500 yards and over 10 touchdowns. So not terrible, I guess, or close to 10 touchdowns. Not awful. Robert Beasley has a great year for us at right tackle. Marcus Kirk also has a great year, so we have 2 All-Americans on our offensive line, so I didn't think our O-line would be one of the better spots of our offense, but it is pretty inconsistent as our left tackle and Dio Tanner also struggled as well, and I'm pretty sure our center also didn't have that great of a year. Yeah, Curtis Daly has yet to really have a good year at center. He's kind of struggled. Even though their overalls continue to go up, they're just not really producing at the level that they need to. So Jeff Williams still leads the team in tackles despite being injured at the end of the year and missing, I think, a couple games. I think he missed that North Texas game as well as the New Orleans Bowl, but he still leads the team in tackles. Alton O'Neill leads the team in TFLs with 21, but Calhoun directly behind him at 20. He also leads the team in sacks with 10, and then there's a few people with 3 picks. So Jeff Williams also leading the team in interceptions despite being injured at the end of the year as well. So interesting stuff there to see how productive Williams could have been if he played a full year. And Norman Mays has a better year in his junior year than he did in his sophomore year, but still not nearly as good as we would like him to be. Still looking for that freshman year high, but he did hit a 51-yarder at some point this year. I refuse to believe that. There's no way he did that. So now that we are part of the Pac-10, it's time to look at the standings for the Pac-10. Cal ends up winning the Pac-10 at 9-4 because of their conference record. Washington finishes number 2 in the country at 12-1, but doesn't win the Pac-10. USC finishes 8-4. Stanford at 7-5. UCLA has a good year in conference comparatively, even though they only went 4-7. All their games came in conference. Oregon State goes 7-5 and only wins 3 conference games. Washington State, Oregon, and Arizona all kind of have difficult seasons here, winning 4 or fewer games. And now looking at the last year of the Sun Belt standings here, North Texas at the top because we just left at 9-4. You go Louisiana Monroe actually had a pretty decent year, and then everyone else really kind of struggled. So this was kind of a destiny, late in season for us because the Sun Belt was so weak this year, really kind of paving the way for us to kind of win it and take over and get that bid to go to the Pac-10, whether we were ready for it or not. And then Arizona State has has a terrible year, which, is getting them booted out. So now looking in the polls here, Florida finishes number 1, Washington finishes at 2, Auburn moves up to 3, Arkansas at 4, and then Boston College dropping to 5 to round out the top 5. Virginia Tech moves up to 6, Texas to 7, Kansas State drops all the way to 8th, Penn State moves up to 9th, and then Iowa rounds things out at 10. They were the reigning national champions, and they finished 10th in the country with a 3-loss season. South Carolina, Cal dropping to 12, Tennessee moving up to 13, and Air Force moving to 14, and NC State dropping to 15 is your top 15. And then USC now in our conference, Fresno State, Oklahoma, Miami moving up to 19th, and Alabama dropping to 20th is your top 20. And now the last kind of stragglers in here, Marshall moving up to 21st. Ohio State drops to 22nd. Northern Illinois sneaks into the rankings after an 11-2 season. Florida State sneaks into the rankings with a 7-5 campaign, and then Wake Forest drops all the way to 25th to round out the top 25 in year number 5. So taking a look at our school budgets here, we're going to keep things the same. I think that this makeup that we have here has allowed us to build the program as quickly as we have, and we haven't had a lot of disciplinary problems this season. I had like a couple last year that weren't really major issues, so I think we're okay with it. Our graduating class is very small. I think this is the last year of a really small graduating class before we start losing a lot of people every year, and a lot of these guys are some of the bigger prospects that we recruited in our first season. So all those receiving prospects we got, Clay Payton leaving is big, Michael Harris leaving is massive too, because a lot of these guys are the best at their respective positions. Michael Harris is our best DB that we have. Patrick Wilkerson was our second best receiver on the team, and then Clay Payton was also a very important prospect on the defensive line. So those are 3 pretty major losses to have, but we will now see after our charmed season just exactly how much that impacted our recruiting, and it impacted it a lot. We got the number 8th tight end, the number 8th receiver, the number 9th receiver, really important. Really important. I think the rank might be statewide, because it says number 2 receiver, which I don't think is true. Maybe number 2 in Canada. I don't know. But we did get quite a bit of 4-stars here. We really didn't have a lot of areas in the roster that needed help here, but I recruited some extra depth at other positions that we did lose, like linebacker and cornerback, and I also got a 2-star athlete, because I liked what happened with Matt Norwood when we recruited an athlete last season. So we come in at 33rd in recruiting, which is our highest season recruiting so far. And then Jarvis Fields, the athlete that we just recruited, his best possible position is at cornerback at 65, so I put him there to give us some depth here at that position, which again, I'm just kind of worried about being thin. I want as many guys there as we possibly can, because that's a position that we haven't really developed all that well so far historically in the Lynch era. So looking over the cut numbers here, it's there's a few guys that we need to cut. So we have 62 guys on the roster that all needed to be cut, and there's a few guys that we are going to cut. So I tried to find some people here, some places on the roster that we might have been able to maybe move to other parts of the roster. Like I tried to move English, who's like the 4th or 5th running back on the roster, but there weren't really a ton of places for him to go. We had a backup tight end who's kind of an odd man out that I thought maybe we could move somewhere else, but there weren't like a ton of places for him to go either. He is a better fullback, so we do kind of move him to that second position as our fullback, and now we have a little bit of depth at the fullback position. But there's a lot of other guys here that I thought we might be able to move somewhere else, and I don't really think that there's a huge future for a lot of those people, because unfortunately a lot of the positions don't translate as much as well as I thought they would. I thought it would be a lot of a more clear and transparent translation to maybe some other positions, like moving a D lineman to the O line, but that's not exactly how it works. Really, only D lineman can really only do well at defensive tackle, and linebackers can maybe do well on the defensive line, but that's really about it. Outside of that, everyone really can only play about 1 or 2 positions, except for those athletes who can really kind of play a few different places. Norwood, I think, would have been better at a few different positions last season, but his best was just quarterback, so we went with it. And this year, Jarvis Fields, that 2-star that we recruited, he really only had about 1 position that he could do decently well, and everything else was pretty much just a wash. So, but that is how the position changes kind of go here. Now we're going to get into training results, and training results, take a look. Just put your eyes on that. Feast your eyes on this. We have quite a bit of guys getting over that 80 threshold, which I didn't think we would ever really get to after years 1 and 2. I never thought we'd have a roster that was mostly compiled of mid to high 70s and mid to low 80s, but that's pretty much where the roster is. We even have a 90 snuck in there. Gross, our strong safety from last year, he's finally up over 90. Or into the mid-90s, rather. And we do still have plenty of 60-something overalls that are all kind of on the bench, but most of our starters are at least over that 70 to 75 threshold. So our roster is finally in a respectable enough position where I think we might actually be able to compete in the Pac-10. I didn't think we would be able to. I think there's still some programs that we won't be able to, but for the most part, I think we're kind of up there. So the quarterback depth chart is again going to be Norwood, Chester, and Worthington. Norwood up to an 85. Keith Bridges again going to start at running back in his junior year at 86 overall, with Marcus Donnelly at 76 overall behind him. Kind of a big fall off there, but we're okay for at least the next season or two. Dylan Barker's up to an 82 in his senior year at fullback, and then Stuart Malone, who we just moved to fullback, is going to be the backup. And then at receiving, we have Nicholas Bullard as our top receiver as a junior now, and then Roderick Williams, who we just recruited, as an 84 as well. He's even faster than Nicholas Bullard, so we might have a new stud there. Connor McNeil goes up to an 80 overall. He's third on the depth chart. Trey Mosley, another freshman we just brought in, along with Andy Matthews, another freshman we just brought in, are kind of filling out the receiving core. So we're going to have a good receiving core. I'm not worried. Byron Huber in his senior year is going to be our starting tight end, but Bam Blanks, a sophomore, he's already up to an 82 as well, and he's much faster than Huber is. So maybe that's a change that we should make, but for right now we're going to go with Huber here as he's getting a little bit older. Marcus Kirk is going to start at left tackle for us here. Dio Tanner's going to come back at left guard. Our O-line's looking a little older here. We've got a few seniors on the O-line. Curtis Daly, our center, is finally leaving after this year. Peter Peterson, we're going to move out here in place of James Daly, who's going to start at right guard for us. And then at right tackle, we got Robert Beasley, the highest overall player on our offensive line. He's coming back to start on the right side for us. So Alden O'Neill in his senior year up to an 87 is going to be on the left side here. And then Carlos Calhoun, another senior, is going to be on the right side now. Both two guys that we kind of repositioned here to play those positions. Anton Paris ends up taking the top position at defensive tackle, replacing Vernon McIntosh here, who's now second. And then DeMarco Hickman is third. So, but these guys are all seniors, so we're going to have to completely rebuild the defensive tackle position. Brian Winborn is going to start on the left side, linebacking. In the middle linebacking position, Zach Weiss is going to hold it down, and then on the right side, we're going to make space for Jeff Williams once again here because he's kind of an odd man out, weirdly enough, but he's the best linebacker on the right side that we have, so Jeff Williams is obviously going to start again following his injury last season, so don't have to worry about that. Claude Orr is up to an 80. He's our top DB, and this is what I was talking about. We don't have a ton of depth at this position. It's a huge fall off after Claude Orr. And even Claude Orr is not nearly high enough as I kind of want. So our cornerback position is going to be the worst part of our team by far. Keon Wesley isn't that great either at a 78, but Warren Gross kind of makes up for a lot of that lack of depth that we have, lack of skill that we have in our secondary by being a 94 strong safety. Norman Mays is up to a 62. He finally had a good year training. And then Abraham Walden, our punter, is up to an 84. So one of the best players on our team is our punter, oddly enough, which is funny, but it is what it is. That's kind of how things happen. So we're going to look ahead to our next year's schedule here. I've added Syracuse, New Mexico, and Hawaii to the out-of-conference schedule. I wanted to add Utah State since they were the only Sun Belt team that we didn't beat last year, but it wouldn't let me. I had to keep New Mexico, but moving along into week 0 now, or after week 0, Syracuse plays a week 0 game against the number 6 team ranked in the country, Penn State, and they would lose it. So we're going to be heading into our week 1 matchup against the Orange here, Syracuse, already down a game. So we're heading all the way up to Syracuse for dome supremacy to assert who is the better domed team. So hope to see you guys in the next video when we kick off year number 6 in Syracuse in the Pac-10.